much. Let's get some more on all of this. Joining us now, CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller. Also, CNN law enforcement analyst, former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow. CNN law enforcement contributor, retired FBI supervisory special agent Steve Moore. And defense attorney Shan Wu is with us as well. John Miller, what more can you tell us about this suspect and how the authorities actually, in the end, tracked him down?
Well, Bryan Kohberger is an interesting person because it kind of takes a horrific crime and almost turns it into an episode of Criminal Minds. You've got a guy who is going for a master's degree or a PhD in criminal justice studies, who at DeSales University was part of a project where they sought people who had committed crime to interview them to determine, you know, how they made decisions while they committed their crimes, whether to commit a violent act or not, whether to escape and how. So it's someone who has been delving into the innermost sanctums of criminal thinking, who is now accused of a particularly horrific crime, and one that seems, and we may learn more about this later, to be one without motive. The key here is two things. One is the car. That is the clue that police put forward to us and said, we are looking for this Elantra, the white Elantra, that was seen in the area of the house around the time of the murders. The second piece is DNA that was recovered at the scene. Sources tell me that his DNA has been matched to DNA that was recovered at the scene. When we get the criminal complaint that lays out how they established their probable cause in this case, we'll figure out the chicken and the egg of that, which is, did they recover the DNA at the scene? Were they able to identify it there? Less likely. More likely that they were able to trace that car to people in the area that had a car like that registered to them, work on those people, and then get DNA from their suspects to compare to the what we're assuming would be the unknown contributor at the scene. The way you would do that, especially if you had him under surveillance, would be to get an abandonment sample, a cup of coffee, a bottle of water, a cigarette, something that he tossed away where DNA could be extracted and then matched. But again, that's a process piece. We don't know that yet. We'll know that when we see that complaint, if he doesn't fight extradition and is presented to that court in Idaho.
Yeah, we know he now has a public defender, so we'll see what happens on that front. Shan Wu, what does it tell you that this suspect was actually studying criminology at a university? By the way, we just got some video of when he graduated from that university with this degree in criminology, and it's just miles down the road from where these students were murdered.
Well, it certainly tells us that he is somebody who we would expect is smart enough to try to cover their tracks, to have other kinds of excuses for why he might have been in the area. And that really goes back to the point John was making about what little evidence we know exists right now. It's powerful evidence. What it tells us is he was pretty much beyond a reasonable doubt there. I mean, you've got his car registered to him, and you've got genetic matching of him being there. What it doesn't tell us is really, did he do it? Proof that he was there doesn't mean that he did it, and it certainly doesn't tell us how or why. And that's where they're going to be expanding their investigation now, and that's what his lawyer ultimately and the prosecutor are going to be real interested in, is what are other people saying about him? His fellow students, his family, what do his writings show besides the Reddit, what kind of social media is there? Because establishing that motive will be so important. And you know, you don't always establish motive by someone writing a manifesto laying out exactly what their beliefs are. It has to be inferred. So that's the important step that's now going on.
There's a lot of steps, I'm sure, going on right now. Steve Moore, this suspect's DNA, as we now know, matched with DNA recovered at the scene. But police say they're still searching for the murder weapon. How critical is that type of forensic evidence?
Well, you'd really like to have it, obviously, but I don't think it's critical at all to convict on this one. And from the beginning, we all knew that this was going to be solved not by people necessarily saying, well, this person saw this person in a video. This was going to be solved by crime scene forensic evidence. And The DNA, I think, is, if true, is just the tip of the iceberg. I think what you're going to find here is that if somebody resisted, if they came in physical contact, there's going to be transfer. There could be his skin cells underneath the fingernails of the victims. That is more than presence in the room. And so I think we've got pretty much, or I suspect they've got enough to take him down on this. The big issue right now is always going to be the motive. And when the police ask the public for something, it's because they're still searching. They don't have the motive nailed down here. And that's not surprising to me, because what we're looking for in a motive usually is, oh, he knew that person, or he was angry with that person, or he was a stalker, or whatever. No, I think you're going to find something deeper and darker about this than any kind of logical motive. And it kind of squeaked out a little bit in the press conference when I believe it was Chief Fry, who's done an excellent job, by the way. Chief Fry said, we're going to get more information on his personality, on his habits, and give it to professionals. Well, all the law enforcement people in that room and on this case are professionals. He had to mean somebody more like a profiler.
Yeah, good point. Jonathan, give me your thoughts. What do you think?
Well, listen, Wolf, there's a lot that we don't know. I think, John Miller laid out the, two key elements that investigators keyed in on, but there were over 19,000 tips provided to law enforcement and, over 300 interviews conducted. There's a lot more that we don't know about this investigation. And really what I'm focused on is he was charged with, first-degree murder. That's premeditated. That's a premeditated act. So what I want to look for is, from these charging documents, was there some sort of precipitating event? Was there some sort of engagement between the suspect and these individuals that caused him to take this, to engage in this violent act? So right now, we have some information, but that key element of motive, answering that question why for the victims' families, still remains unanswered.
And so let's get John Miller back into this conversation. How will law enforcement in the end try to determine any links to these four victims and a possible motive? I know they're going through his social media and all of his texting and tweeting and all of that.
Well, I mean, the first one is and as Chan will tell you, is the interview. We don't know yet, when they sat him down to interview him, whether he agreed to talk and what he revealed, if anything. The second thing is that DNA, because it's either the most important clue in the world or it's a very important clue in the world. And the difference is, if he had a reason to have been in that house, his DNA could have been there. He visited somebody, he knew somebody, we don't know that yet. If he had no reason to be in that house, then it becomes extraordinarily important. And as one of our other panelists pointed out, if that DNA is skin cells under someone's fingernails from the struggle that occurred that resulted in defensive wounds during the murder, that is very suggestive of how it got there. So we have a lot to learn. The police are also very candid that they have a lot to learn. The idea that they put it out there today, which is anybody who knows anything about this guy or his travels here or his friends here or his habits here, we want to hear from them, shows, as was stated here today, they are really trying to build around the picture. Beyond just that they've linked him scientifically to being at the scene and to the car that was there.
And we're going to stay on top of the story and wait for more information. Guys, thank you very, very much.